is have him come back when we're ready to.
Yeah.
Because I think we're appointing him to board of review. Is there something critical for it? Like, do we have a board of review meeting like next week or something?
No.
Okay. So I would like to pull him off and have him come back, so if we have questions for him, we could ask him.
Any objection?
No.
Okay, we will go ahead and do that. Ms. Cronin, you have that down?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like to ask, I'd like to start with Barbara Elwood Getch for the library board. I just do have a few questions for you. Can you come up? Yeah.
Yeah, if you can come up to the podium and speak into the microphone, that'd be wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
you.
I did get a phone number for you right before the meeting, but I didn't get a chance to call you, so I apologize. I have tried to call everybody that's on the list, but I haven't been able to hit everyone. I've asked several library board members this question. I think 2 weeks ago we had Benjamin, I think, was up, and I had the same questions for him, and I'd like to ask you these same two questions. Do you believe that there should be a policy with regard to the presentation of materials either in a sexual, political, or gender nature to young children 3 to 5 years old in the library?
Oh, thank you. Well, I am a non-voting member of the library board. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of that. I've been appointed by the Jefferson County Board. So my role that I see for this position is I go to all of the meetings, and I do. So I'm happy to see Mr. Kowalski and Mr. Alderman Shellpepper, because I see them every month, or
Used to.
he's replaced, yeah, they're friends.
I see Lou
So-
twice a month,
Yes,
so.
yes, so, anyway, I do not, as I said, I'm a non-voting member. My role is to listen to all of the business for the library board. I take copious notes. I try my best to talk to the people in, at the Jefferson County Board. I pay very much attention to the statistics, the circulation statistics, and I see that the Jefferson County patrons are really very active and happy to be using the public library here in Oconomowoc. I also take note to the fact that Jefferson County always pays its fees, and we pay them right when we're supposed to, so I'm always happy to see that. And then generally, my role is just to talk up the public library in Oconomowoc. So I try to stay positive. The library board has not addressed that problem that I remember that I've seen, so.
Well, as a non-voting member, then I don't need to ask you any other questions. I appreciate you putting your name in. And I was able to talk to Ben Weimer, who's the county executive for Jefferson, who put you up, and he spoke highly of you, so
Yeah,
thank you.
he's very nice. He's very kind.
He's a good guy. And he lives right up the road from me, so
Oh,
it's
does
easy.
he?
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
yeah.
wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Sure,
Appreciate it.
sure.
So any other council members? We'll come back if you have more, Mr. Rozak. Anybody other council members have anyone that they'd like to speak to? Then go back to you, Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, I have a question for Andrew. You want to come up? Thanks. So we're potentially appointing you, Jill, Ron, and Peter, the technology committee. During your last run for alderman, you put out some flyers that said you wanted to go back to dispatch, being local.
Right.
I'm curious why that was your position, and did you understand that once we moved to WCC that was going to be, pretty much impossible to do? Do you understand that?
I do. I had some issues, as far as what it meant to the city to have a local dispatch. I think people feel safer understanding that it's nearby, in there. I don't think people really understand what Waukesha does versus the local. I think it's a complicated issue. I think there were reasons why it was moved. I don't think that overall it's going to affect the local taxpayer. There's a lot of equipment sitting at City Hall, not being used for, that kind of thing. But overall, I think it was definitely something that has to be looked at. I know that it's not a big issue right now as far as, I know that it's not coming back anytime soon.
And-
But
and-
I
and-
did have some issues with, when I talked to local people, when I was running for alderman, they did say, you know, they had concerns.
Right.
At a local level.
So that was one of the questions. I didn't necessarily want to vote to approve someone who is going to come onto our technology committee and start pushing that agenda when we've already voted on that. So as long as you understand that this is kind of that's a dead thing.
I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and I knew that. I thought it was something that people talked to me about.
Fair.
And they had their concerns.
Okay.
So, I wanted, you know, my personal opinion, you know, was what you saw on the flyer. However, I understand that it's a dead issue.
Okay. Good. That was the only question I had for you. Thank
Okay.
you for putting your name in.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Any other folks you'd like to talk to?
Yeah, I'd just like the last library board member, Carrie Hansen, if she's got a minute. Hi, Carrie, how are you? You're okay with me calling you Carrie?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
So again, I have had several similar questions for the library board candidates. I think it's interesting topics, and you and I actually got a chance to speak, I think yesterday, was it Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. Do you believe that there should be a policy with regard to the presentation of materials of a sexual, political, or gender-oriented nature to 3 to 5-year-olds in the library?
Actually, they are already presented for the appropriate age group. The picture books have just been reorganized. Also, there's a policy in place, you know, for children up to age 8, you know, must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. They must be supervised. So, you know, parents, especially children ages 3 to 5, will be supervised. Also, children, you know, must have their parents' permission to get out a library card, so they cannot check out those books without parent supervision.
Do you believe that there should be books on both sides of a controversial issue or topic?
Absolutely. Well, actually, not just sides. I think multiple perspectives, as many perspectives as we can get, as the policy states. You know, the collection development policy states that a balanced collection attempts to represent all sides of controversial issues as far as materials, space, and budget allow. And I really support, I think the library really has strong policies in place. So I was able, after your phone call, you know, I did review the policies, and I was already pleased with the library policies, and now I'm even more pleased that I've had more information.
So with that answer, then, if there was a topic that was of some controversial nature and there was only books on one side of an issue, you would be in favor of bringing books in appropriately, of course, on the other side of that issue, or multiple sides of that issue?
Absolutely. And we have you know, the policy clearly states there's a selection criteria, and I do trust our staff to abide by what's in the policy and look to the selection criteria when they're making those choices.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Alderman Shellpepper.
No question. I just wanted to say I had the opportunity to serve with Carrie for at least the last year, just like I served with Ben. I think you've been an amazing team, you know, member of the library board. I think you bring a lot of experience and knowledge to it. I've always found you engaged and interested and passionate about what's happening. So thank you for, you know,
Appreciate
being
that.
willing to be put back up for the appointment.
I really love it. I mean, I've so enjoyed and learned so much about the library. In fact, there are so many services I keep telling people, you won't believe what's there. So I'm very excited to serve again.
Well, thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other comments on any of the appointees?
Just one general comment. So I appreciate that we've gotten most of the resumes for the folks. Most of the people are showing up, which is great. If we have questions or we have concerns, this is an important thing that we do. I think past councils have always been very lackadaisical about this. And even if we don't ask questions, I think it's important for us to see the people's faces, that they're here, that they're engaged, because a lot of the appointments we make could outlast all of us. So an appointment to the library board is, I think, 3 years. So the people we're appointing to some of these boards could outlast all of us on council, so these are important decisions, and outlast the mayor. I appreciate that we finally have got the time of service on the side, which is something I've asked for, so that's great. That's outstanding. The last big request I have, which I think I've expressed a couple times, maybe to the mayor, but maybe nobody else, I'd like to see us have a more holistic approach to appointments moving forward. So as they come up, my understanding is, I think we know by February who's coming up, you know, February, January, who's coming up. I think it'd be good for us to engage the community as aldermen to try, because, and you've engaged with me several times, and I think with some of trying to, hey, we got a role to fill. It'd be great for us to know as a council, 2, 3, 4 months out, hey, here's the 5 people that are being reappointed, or we're thinking about reappointing, or here are open seats, so that we can go out and engage the community, because I feel like, not that it's bad to reappoint people necessarily, but sometimes we do that too much and we don't get some new blood in. And I think that'd be important for us as a community to really, especially as aldermen, to get out and engage our neighbors, knock on doors and say, hey, there's a board of review spot open, there's a library board spot open. Put your name in, come out and help us get engaged, so it's not the people doing the same old roles over and over forever. So if we could do that this next cycle, I think that'd be helpful. Or even if you have openings coming up, just pop us an email in one of the status reports that we get on Friday saying, hey, we got 4 openings, can you guys help us fill it? Because as you know, I'm happy to go out and knock some doors. It's hard to find people. It really
No,
is.
it definitely is, and I think it's a lot easier too when it's not an election year, because you really can't start that, especially for
True.
the mayor, because you don't know if you're gonna be in that same position, and you wanna leave that opportunity actually for whoever gets into that seat. So I think every other year, that'll be pretty easy to do, and I think we did it pretty well last year, but I think it's a little harder during the election year. But great comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So my understanding is we have set aside John Harrison for the 2 appointments there for our next meeting when he's back from vacation. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the appointees as outlined in your packets.
So moved, Spiegelberg.
Second, Mulder.
Any conversation? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper,
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Douglas,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Hi.
Alderman Altman Cloth,
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye. Great. Well, thank you. And for those folks that came, I'm sorry, ran a little bit late. Really appreciate you coming and your service to the community, because it's a lot of work to give of your time and your talents to the community and the city, and we really appreciate it. So thank you. I'll do that one later. Yeah, come back to it. So we're going to move on to comments and suggestions from citizens.
Mayor's a point of order. I think the mayoral appointments, we also needed separate motions as listed below. Do you want us to continue those?
Those
I was
can-
going to do them later so we
Oh.
could keep rolling, and because we have a lot of people in here. And those were not people.
Oh, they're separate. My
Yeah.
apologies.
They're separate entities. So I was trying to get to the people that
Okay.
had filled out the blue cards. So unless there's an objection.
No.
Okay. So let's move on to comments and suggestions from citizens. So if you filled out a blue card, I'm going to call out your name. What we'd like you to do is come to the podium. Please try to speak into the microphone. Please state your name, your address, and what city or village that you live in. And this is a part of the meeting where you have the opportunity to talk for approximately 3 minutes and share your views with the council. It's not a two-way dialogue. If it's an issue that's going to be addressed later in the council, they're going to be debating it a little bit later. But this is your opportunity to tell council anything that's on your mind. So when you come up to the podium, there's going to be a little clock, and we're going to try to stay fairly much on time. And if you're kind of running over, I'll just try to politely say, hey, can you kind of close your thoughts or come together so that we can continue to move on. So first one is Philip Henley.
Good evening. My name is Philip Heinley. Address is 1011 Anne Marie Way, Oconomowoc, the city. I am the current president of the Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts, and we would like your help. For over 50 years, the festival has been bringing hundreds of artists from across the country to Oconomowoc and attracting thousands of visitors to our great city. But the festival has some serious concerns that I respectfully ask to be addressed to keep this great event safe and positive for everyone. First is safety. On Friday night during setup, the festival artists have scheduled check-in times to manage traffic on Oakwood Avenue. Temporary use vendors are not managed and add to the confusion and the traffic issues. I was directing traffic there, and there were major backups. with the temporary use vendors parking in the no parking areas and backing trailers into driveways. Motorists on Oakwood were honking horns, yelling out the window, giving me the finger, and I was trying to manage the whole chaos. Motorists were even driving up over the curb to push through. I would hate to have an irate person drive through the area and hit a pedestrian. The weekend of the festival is very dangerous as well. When customers from the temporary use vendors step off the curb to cross Oakwood, they are dodging through traffic and transportation buses. As Mayor Magnus has said in the past, safety is not negotiable. We would really like your help. Our festival is a nonprofit. None of our members are paid. The food vendors and spotlight groups are all nonprofits and community organizations. The funds generated are returned to the community through scholarships and band boosters and church organizations. The temporary user vendors are not improving the image of Oconomowoc to our artists or our guests. In order to be considerate of the street owners, I would respectfully ask that they be granted the same temporary use permit they had last year, in case they've already made commitments to some of their vendors. In 2023, I would ask that they only have a maximum of 3 vendors with each permit. 2024, 2 vendors, 2025, 1 vendor, and in 2026, no permits. Respectfully, Philip Heinley.
Thank you. Lynn Frank, please.
Hello, I'm Lynn Frank, City of Oconomowoc, 306 Pine Terrace. I'm a volunteer with Festival of the Arts, work on the silent auction, and I am working on the historian. To celebrate the Oconomowoc 50 years, I helped create a history booklet showing all the accomplishments of the festival and its contributions to the community. Brief history. In 1970, Virginia Harris and Barbara Johnson, along with the Oconomowoc Women's Club and Junior Women's Club, had a vision to bring an arts festival to Oconomowoc community. The first arts festival was at Zion Episcopal Church, and as the festival grew, it moved to Fowler Park. In 1980, the festival incorporated as a community-led organization, and to date is regarded as a premier summer event of our community. For my booklet, I collected some memories and quotes that I would like to share with you. One quote is, "A special magic place every summer in Fowler Park as artists and performers from all over our great nation assemble to celebrate life in its most superb glory." Tim Traynor. The Festival of the Arts is always a favorite weekend of mine. Jeff Leonard and I have played there for 30 years. Rick Rojas, he's a musician. It is a flagship event of the community. It sets a cultural standard for the community. Betty Royal. I have always felt the festival was an important activity for the betterment of the city, and for that reason, I have continued to be involved for over 35 years. Barb Baker. The Oconomowoc Festival of Arts is a very important activity. The Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts has been a celebration of art and our community. It has brought friendship, kindness, and creativity, a show that sparkles. I would also like to add my own thoughts that I have attended many art fairs over the years. Milwaukee, Madison, Delafield, the Third Ward, Baraboo, Lake Mills, Holy Hill. At all of these festivals, I have only seen the artists who are invited to attend. I have never seen any outside sales near any of these shows. Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration of our request to discontinue issuing temporary use permits to across-the-street vendors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Schweitzer.
I'm Tom Schweitzer. I live at 1033 Anne Marie Way in the city of Oconomowoc. I would like to share a few of the artist quotes from our 50th anniversary memory booklet. The aim of the Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts was and is to bring art and artists of great merit to the area, thereby broadening the appreciation for the visual arts. That's a quote by Virginia Harris and Charles Harrell. It's the general aura of hospitality and joy of all the volunteers exhibit. I do a show almost every weekend, and Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts is definitely in my top 5. It offers quality art and the widest diversity. I have recommended it to many artists from around the country. Most have participated and were happy they did. Don Nedebeck. I have people tell me always that they prefer this show to all other art fairs, especially better than Milwaukee Lakefront Art Festival. I am so grateful that I am honored to be exhibiting every year, and that brings me a lot of peace of mind and self-confidence as an artist. Charlotte Fung Miller, she's an artist. I have always loved it. There really is no other small city that I know of that has something as big as this is in our beautiful city. It brings people from all over. The food is great, the artwork is amazing, it is always very well done, and it is one of the things that makes me proud to be born and raised here. Bill Frederick. Thank you for being willing to consider our request to phase out the temporary use permits to the across-the-street vendors during the Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts.
Thank you. Scott Donald?
Hi, Scott Donald, 610 North Oakwood. I'm actually one of the people that lives right down from the art fair. So my wife and I are both art collectors, and we want to keep it like it is. We bring in artists who we are trying to give a helping hand to start up, get them exposure, and just get them out there, get their feet wet. And, you know, we've been there for 17 years, and every day or every year when the art fair shows up and it's going on, the cars line up and the traffic starts. So it's inconvenient, but we also look forward to it. And, with that in mind, I guess we're allowed to pay a fee to have artists come, show their stuff in our yard and to sell it. I feel like keeping it the way that it is probably it's a good thing. It gets artists the chance to sell their art, to get it in front of people. And I don't think you can really sell that short. That's a pretty big thing. And that's all I got to say. Thank you much.
Thank you. Christina Donald?
Donald, 610 North Oakwood. I don't know what much more I can say other than what my husband just said, but we've lived in Oconomowoc for 17 years. Living on Oakwood is a ton of fun because of all of the activity that occurs, but it's also inconvenient sometimes. I mean, every weekend during the summer, there's some sort of charity walk. We get awakened to cowbells and other things going on. It's fun, it's exciting, and Art Fair weekend is probably one of our most fun times that we have living on Oakwood. We have friends that come and stay with us to attend the fair, and I guess I find that not everybody can get into the art fair. Not everybody has the funds to do so. Not everybody will make the cut. I also find that the art fair tends to have a lot of the same artists year over year. I know I heard somebody mention Charlotte Fung Miller. I can tell you exactly where she sets up in the art fair, because I've been going to the art fair for 17 years, and you can walk around the corner, and there she is. So I feel like, as an art collector, art lover, giving others the opportunity, artists don't generally have a lot of money. This is a place for them to get some exposure. Last year, we had an artist who was breaking out from Ephraim Pottery out on her own. She had beautiful pottery that she sold on our front lawn. We don't charge because we feel like it's nice for us to give the opportunity to others. So as far as traffic, getting in and out of our own driveway over Art Fair weekend, we generally make sure we have lots of food and we stay home, because getting in and out of our driveway is really difficult. I guess allowing us to have permits and give others a chance is a small price to pay for the inconvenience that most of us go through for living on Oakwood. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Audley?
Hi, Chris Audley, 445 North Oakwood Avenue in Oconomowoc, the city. We are right across from the entrance to the park. So 21 years worth of that. At one point in time, it's like either I join them or something's going to change, and I was not ready to move. So it's a great situation, I think, for most people in Oakwood. They enjoy it. They enjoy the art fair. They love being a part of it. But there's a lot of bad things that come with it as well, like we hear. You know, we talk about traffic patterns, et cetera. It's people coming to the venues on the outside. It's the people coming to the art fair. Everyone dodges through the traffic. Everyone's having issues. Dogs, cats, out in the street, people with their bikes. It's a headache. You know, I have to clean up out of my yard all the time. Diapers, people's garbage. They just aren't very cordial to the people who do live there. It's a free-for-all. So at some point in time, it's like, okay, we need to be a part of this. I actually run an art gallery in Waukesha, Gallery 1's been there for 43 years. So that's all I do, is I bring in artists from my gallery to let them show their works. There are people like Scott's wife had just said, they may not get that opportunity to be in there. So we're very picky over what it is. It's not fly-by-night people. We're not having a rummage sale. We're making sure people are actually seeing this artwork and getting exposed to new things that they might not ever see. I do not charge the artists. They get to come and go as they please. But, you know, with traffic patterns, et cetera, that's something that really is going to happen whether the art fair is there or we're doing what we do across the street. So I don't think the only thing you can have there is just more people on the street to be able to monitor it. I don't think phasing it out is ever really going to help. I noticed that for this event, it's that people do not have to apply for a permit for a rummage sale during this time frame. I could imagine the people up and down on my street, if you decide to take away the permits, you're gonna have nothing but rummage sale on every single street corner. Do you want it? Now you're worried about artists that are selling things that maybe you don't like. Now suddenly we've got bicycle parts, tires, furniture, little kids, dolls, etc. So be careful what you wish for at some point in time. It may come back to bite you. So enjoy what the people around the surrounding areas are offering. We're cordial to the people in the art fair back and forth. And again, as an art person, a person who runs a gallery, you don't know how many people come in and say, I love what you guys did out here. I go through the art fair, that's great. This is refreshing out here. I can move around and enjoy myself. We advertise this art fair on our website. I do within my gallery itself and by word of mouth. So we bring a lot of people into this community to come and see this art fair. So don't take it away from the people around the peripheral.
Thank you. Lori Boldig?
Hello, I am Lori Boldig, W2373 McElvey Court, Oconomowoc. I'm a downtown business owner. I own the gallery, Fine Art Framing and Gifts. Chris and I have been friends for 30-some years. We used to work together. So I've been in the art and framing business since 1985. I just want to say that, you know, I've traveled to many, many juried art festivals across the U.S. over 40 years. And always searching for new artists for my store. And no art fair that I've ever attended has ever had any outside vending, you know, anywhere near somebody who has a big event like that. The other thing I want to say is that, as a past president of DOBA, we held events in city parks, the Village Green. And the city personnel has always really worked with us to ensure that no conflicting events were held at the same site during the same time. And I guess that's my thing. I can kind of see both sides, yet at the same time, there's hundreds of hours of volunteerism for the Festival of the Arts. And I guess I'd like to say that, please afford the Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts the same benefit that you give to the Oconomowoc Downtown Business Association for events being one at a time.
Thank you. Barb Henley?
Good evening. So Mayor and council members, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I have a question for you. If our celebrated Legion Band was performing at the band shell, would the city issue permits for rock bands to play across the street? It would be an insult to the Legion Band and to the people attending that concert. The residents across the street may certainly host the vendors any other time of the year. Would you please continue to give the Festival of the Arts the thoughtful recognition that you gave in 2020 when you presented the key to the city and the proclamation naming the third week of the third week in August, the Oconomowoc Festival of the Arts Week. And thank you.
Thank you. Bob Nussbaum?
Hi, I'm Bob Nussbaum, 833 Byron Drive, here on Oconomowoc. Yeah, I'm a festival volunteer, along with about 300 other people, right? I joined this group to volunteer my time because of the festival's character, which you've heard all about already, right? Small town Americana, the casual going through there and overlooking the lake. I mean, it's wonderful, right? I mean, all of us has been there, we love it. But as Phil said earlier, yeah, we need your help. The traffic issues on Friday night with over 150 to 200 trucks and trailers all coming in down Oakwood, each one of them for the festival has a unique set time period where they have to come in, right? And they're scheduled and they're organized. And unfortunately, we don't have the purview over the other vendors that are out there, the other merchants that are there. So that does cause some confusion, like Phil mentioned very colorfully. And we also have small children coming in doing their dance recital practice and things like that. So we try to make sure that stuff stays safe. And yeah, we can use your help. How it's going to be resolved, it's up to you to decide. But we do have other things, the cost of our transportation, the other services that we provide, the restrooms, the trash collection, insurance, the ambulance that we have on site. All of those things are covered by the festival in order to make that place a safe and organized facility, along with, of course, all the 300 volunteers. Yes, the merchants on the outside, they certainly benefit from the organization, right? And hey, good for them, right? But as these merchants flourish, and honestly, last year we had a food vendor set up over there, so it did impact us directly there. And we're down at least one charity food vendor this year. Our funds go back into the neighborhood. They go back to sponsor the scholarships and the different charity events and things like that. And so we want to make sure that we can continue to do that as an organization.
You can wrap it up, that would be great.
So I know the festival traffic must be difficult. We want to be good neighbors, and so thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. Jill Persick.
Jill Persick, 701 York Imperial Drive in the city here. And as long as I was here for being on the tech committee again, being another additional member since last time, I thought that I would talk to you a little bit about how I feel. I've been an advocate of safe technology and a voice for a lot of residents over the concern for a lot of dangers of wireless technology. And I came across something that I wanted to share with you. I recently learned of an attorney, Andrew Campanelli, who some of you might have heard of. And I want to just tell you his story. In 1996, he was negotiating leases for cell towers, and he represented site developers. But one day, he got a call from some grandparents in Bayville, New York, across the street from an elementary school. They were saying, there's a water tower with 50 antennas on it. And the grandparents were noticing that people were getting sick all the time. Within 7 years, a third of the staff was sick. Crossing guard and a custodian had cancer. And a teacher closest to the tower had a double mastectomy. Now, a doctor in the village told him that the rate of childhood leukemia was 392% higher than the state average in that village. And he was really skeptical. So he spent a year doing research, including, governments all over the world, and he was horrified. After this year, he concluded that, number one, if you're within 1,500 yards of a cell tower, odds of getting cancer go up about 300 to 400%. He also concluded that children are at the most risk. And local governments, he decided, were the first and only line of defense against irresponsible wireless infrastructure. He said site developers and carriers can mislead us and lie, and it's up to us to make sure that what's happening is legitimate and that the FCC is, for example, compliant with what we're supposed to be doing. So he quit working for site developers and negotiating leases, and for years after that, he has gone to the side of protecting local governments. He works now with local communities to support them, and he does free consultations. So as a part of me being on the tech committee, I want to keep pursuing these conversations and maybe see if we can get him to consult with us.
Thank you very much. That was the last blue card for any public comment. Are there any further public comments? Not hearing any, we'll move on to our consent agenda items. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on to committee reports. Start with Finance. Consider act on Ordinance 22-01032, creating Chapter 29 of the Municipal Code of the City of Oconomowoc regulating short-term rentals. This is a first reading, and this is an ordinance. Mr. Duffy.
Sure, I'll start off, and we'll tag team with Attorney Riffle as well, who drafted the ordinance. This was a conversation that's been going on for some time as it relates to regulation of short-term rental. The state legislature changed how some of these things happen. What we're trying to do is instill a process in which individuals need to register with the city to be able to do that. What we've seen over time is increased complaints, traffic issues, other elements related to that. Use of short-term rentals. But by putting in this in place, should a complaint happen, the police department has teeth to enforce, have an ordinance to enforce, and be able to follow up on such issues and matters. We've made the ordinance in such a way to be consistent with the state statute. consistent with the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection, I'm just used to saying DATCAP, as well as had conversations with Waukesha County, who is the arm that investigates and inspects these properties in order for individuals to rent out their homes from the state licensure process, which is a state-required law.
Any questions from council for Mr. Duffy? Alderman Kavieski.
So this continued step for the BRBOs and those types of things, and we've put ordinance in place to help over the last probably, 2 years or so, maybe 3, in regards to identifying them, being able to deal with room tax and things of that nature.
We've always had a room tax. We have not had a short-term rental component. There's always been a conflict, as Planner Gallo mentioned, and when we get calls like this, there have been questions as it relates to how is it addressed in zoning. This is another way to address it as it relates to not necessarily zoning, but a process in which they can follow in order to get their property usable from a short-term rental standpoint, as well as be consistent with the state law.
Does this apply to condos as well as individual standalone homes and whatever individual property may be classified as a short-term rental?
That is correct. It can be a condo, it can be a single-family home, because we've received calls on all of those. Can be a location above a downtown building. We've gotten those calls as well.
Alderman Rozak.
So I think we somehow, in some fashion or another, debated this a couple of years ago. I think when the Masters were, or
When
something.
the US Open
US
was in,
Open.
right.
Yeah, we
And
kind of had
chose
the
not
debate.
to act at that time.
Yeah, we discussed it in protection and welfare, and at that point, it was kind of decided we don't want to regulate this more necessarily. But talk about more regulation. I'm not necessarily opposed to the concept of what we're doing here, but then I look at a 6-page regulation, and it's like, and I know it's mostly compliance with state law and, all the other issues, but I just wonder how much of a problem this really is. And so I'm on the fence with this one. It's another fee that people will pay $100 for the initial and $50 every year after, correct?
That is correct.
It's funny, we have this debate at the same time we're having the debate about other personal property rights with regard to, having artists come to their front lawns during Festival of the Arts. It's kind of interesting juxtaposed between these two issues. Yeah, I'm torn on this one. Will we be able to get how much money do we get in the taxes from these things in a given year right now?
Well, we really don't have a differentiation because part of the challenge is we sometimes receive checks from VRBO companies. We don't know where they're coming from.
Where does that money go?
I'll give you to
Right
room
to tourism.
tax, to tourism.
Tourism.
And
I'm on that committee now,
interestingly,
so
I'll even bring this up because when we've asked those entities, hey, can you tell us where this is coming from? They say, no, we're not required to do that. For all we know, we could be getting room tax from individuals who are not in the city, but have a 53066 zip code. So we don't know that because there's no interaction between the lodging marketplaces when we've reached out to figure out where they are, what they are. We're aware of the ones that are chronic complaints, as the chief.
Again, I'm not completely against what we're trying to do. It's a lot of regs and it's like kind of we're searching for a problem. I mean, that's just my take, is we're kind of searching for a problem and correcting a problem that doesn't really exist.
Alderman Kavieski.
I'm on your page in regards to less government's better. But the hospitality market has definitely shifted into this segment. If you go to a hotel, there's more than 6 pages of regulations associated with that, I'm sure. So to have some guidelines, some ordinance, some regulation associated with what and how they conduct themselves, I don't think is out of line. I think that's what this is doing.
Intended to do.
And I don't think it's an overreaching document. If it was, I would not be in support of it. But to have some base around a market that is evolved over the last several years and will continue to evolve and be a major segment of the hospitality industry, not just here in Oconomowoc, but nationwide, globally. It's a catching up a bit of, as opposed to looking for a problem. It's already here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
I think it's time to regulate this, and I think it's unfair to our local hotels if we don't.
Alderman Douglas.
I have two things. One's for the chief, actually. So in committee earlier, we talked about this being also a tool for you guys to regulate that. Are you really looking for a regulation for the property owner, like a nuisance property type of ordinance to address the property owner, not the people that are renting it out too?
Correct. It's for the property owner as well, because they have certain regulations that they have to follow that are in there, number of vehicles, this, that, and all those things of that nature.
Yeah, 'cause if you go to a noise complaint, you're gonna address it with the people that are renting it out, not really the property owner without something like this in place.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the part where I see this being positive, unless we address a different ordinance for a nuisance property ordinance that we can address. But two, I'm not for the government overreach, but knowing of people that do rent out properties, I mean, they gotta pay room tax, and if they're not doing that now, that's all money that goes back into the city for our tourism to bring more people in. That's where I think I'm more on the fence to give this the go-ahead forward because of those two things, and really it's mirroring state statute. We're not holding people more accountable for anything more that's on state statute.
Like to entertain a motion?
So
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
There's one grammatical error on page 8 in sub 29.1 sub B. The penalty set forth in this section shall be addition to all. I think it should be in addition. So I think that doesn't need to be a separate motion, just needs to be a fix.
Okay, no problem. Alderman Shellpepper, I think.
Yeah,
you
and
had your
just for
hand up.
clarification for the audience, there was an amendment adopted in the committee defining short-term rental.
Correct.
This is a first reading. Did you want to waive the second reading?
Well, the motion would be to approve version that was recommended by the committee
Okay, so,
with
oh,
the grammatical.
yes, so we'll make a motion to approve the version that was approved by the committee with the grammatical correction and waiving the second reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
And so did you clarify that
Yep.
that amended motion from the committee? Okay, I just, sorry, I didn't pick that up. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Under our next item, consider act on resolution 22-R3036, establishing fees for short-term rentals.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. That's why it was tough.
Based on the ordinance that was just passed, it references fees that are appropriate for that ordinance. As you know, we pass our fees as part of a resolution, so we don't need to amend an ordinance later. Fees are initial fee of $100, $50 renewal on an annual basis.
Any questions? Alderman Kavieski.
How are the dollar amounts determined for this?
We actually looked at other areas surrounding communities and how they have done it, so to be consistent.
Is it based on time spent from staff in regards to that?
It would absolutely be. You'd have to take into account everything that might occur and does occur. We do spend staff time dealing with these entities. As you've heard, we've had 4 or 5 or 6 complaints over, and that takes staff time. This probably won't cover everything, but maybe overall, once we get this in place and people are cooperating, it'll even out so that it'll pay the actual and necessary costs of the premise. They're really kind of modest.
Okay, that's.
And we're trying not to be punitive.
Right.
can't be.
We can't be, right.
Yeah. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Under Protection and Welfare, consider act on ordinance 22-01033, repeal section 9.022B of the City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code regarding conceal carry in city buildings. It's an ordinance change. It's a first reading. Do you want to
I can do this
do
one.
the summary? Yeah.
I thought people would jump in on the committee, but that's fine. The item before us tonight is to consider repealing the prohibition of being able to conceal carry in public buildings in the city of Oconomowoc. The ordinance was put in place back in 2011 when concealed carry became a legal thing to be able to do in the state of Wisconsin. Prior to just a couple of years ago, we housed the police department and the municipal court in this building, and because of state statutes, it wouldn't have allowed for us to waive this, to allow for concealed carry in here. Now that those entities are no longer within our building, that's something that one of our aldermen had requests for us to look at and bring forth, and that's why the item is here tonight. One of the things that staff has done was to provide a little bit of information. We reached out to the department heads for the city-owned buildings for the various departments and got their opinions. 8 of the 9 had felt, they were neutral on it. There was one that indicated that they were not supportive of the change. And then the other thing that we had done was we reached out and looked at the websites of 32 different communities and were able to find the wording that, 17 of them had the same language that we currently have where it's not allowed. There were 15 that we weren't able to find any ordinance that contained the words concealed or firearms. So we're making the assumption that they do allow for concealed carry in their building because of that. And then there was 2 communities that we definitely knew that do allow that, and that was the City of Waukesha and West Bend. So that's the information that we're providing forth for discussion and consideration of this.
I'd like to open it up for comments, questions, thoughts, council. Alderman Spiegelberg.
So one of my questions, and it just seems glaring from this analysis you did of the municipalities, why do so many other municipalities not allow it? It's overwhelming. Is there something we're missing here that, you know what I mean?
So this wasn't a statistical search. I mean, these are actually the 32 communities that we looked at were the 32 that we had looked at when we were looking at election terms. So we just went back to that same list.
But it's overwhelming, and so many communities that are right around us. It just begs the question for me. I did call some of these other communities that you didn't see the documentation on the website. I was kind of shocked that most people I got on the other end of the phone, and sometimes they were city administrators, didn't even know.
You can't trust them. No.
They didn't even know. And then they'd go back into their ordinance and they called me back, I don't know. That shocked me. But I'm just curious about why so many don't allow it. And, or do we do something like West Bend is doing where we say yes, but not, obviously court and police isn't with us anymore, except council meetings in this building? I don't know. Just kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have anything statistical, but actually it's almost half and half when you look at the numbers. It was 17 that said no, 13 that said yes, or we weren't sure of, but more than likely than the 2 that were yes. So it's a 17-15 split out of the 32.
Alderman Douglas.
To answer Alderman Spiegelberg's question, I think a majority was kind of like here, where the police department was located within the same buildings like City Hall or Village Hall.
And that could be.
So, and a lot of those places, that's their only city-owned building, right? I mean, how many people walk into the DPW garage? Not many. And I think that's probably why you see the across the board. We're looking at it differently now because the police department's not here. So
good point.
I think that might be one of the questions.
Alderman Kavieski. And
I-
when you guys talk, if you can speak right into your microphone, we just
I
want to make sure
apologize.
everybody can hear. A little higher.
I'm in favor of adjusting accordingly to allow for concealed carry. My question would be why so many don't allow for the individual who's gone through certified as concealed carry to not have the opportunity to defend themselves if need be in a situation within those buildings. People who go through concealed carry classes and have the ability to protect themselves and others around them if the situation occurs, they tend to be some of the best trained, best prepared citizens out there. Those who, not always, but definitely more so than those who may have obtained a firearm illegally or have intent to create harm. And I'm in favor of allowing for that with the removal of court and with the removal of the police station here. And it's interesting how many wouldn't allow for that.
Alderman Rozak.
Yes, so I was the alderman that asked for this to be put on a couple, 2 or 3 meetings ago, so I appreciate you guys getting it on the agenda and doing the background research. I think Alderman Douglas is probably right that a lot of them, just like here, we couldn't have even done that in this building when it was the court and it was the police station. It's under 157.60, sub whatever it is, 25. You can't carry in those buildings. You also can't carry in a courthouse, federal building, sheriff's office, or any mental health facility, or schools. In fact, if you carry in a school ground, it's a felony. So that's all statutory, that's all figured out. Lou's comment was interesting, and when I thought about this and why I asked about it, I couldn't understand why we had one on our building still. And the question that kept coming back to my mind is, why would our government, why would we as a government be more restrictive of people's rights than Starbucks or Pick and Save or all the other millions of places you can go with a concealed carry weapon? And why can't we protect ourselves when we're here? Why can't citizens that come in here for whatever business protect themselves? We do nothing right now to protect us coming here. We actually are unique because we actually have an armed chief, sometimes a captain, sometimes a couple other officers here to protect us. So we appreciate that. But that isn't the case for all the other committee meetings necessarily, the case for just regular stuff. And I think what the statistics have shown is that actually the more concealed carry licenses that are issued, the less violent crime actually goes down. There was a study, actually it was just done in April 26, 2022, an article in Memphis. A nonpartisan group called the National Bureau of Economic Research studied, there was a paper did an open records request and basically published everybody's concealed carry weapon permit holder in the city. And they created a searchable database. Over time, the criminals were figuring out that they could search this. They studied that, and the areas that had high levels of concealed weapon permit holders had less crime, burglaries, shootings than the areas that had very little or none. And that was because the criminals could actually look up and say, who's a concealed carry permit holder and who's not? And I'm gonna rob the house that I know there's not a permit holder in. So I think the hyperbole about this debate is interesting. Right now, we don't do anything to protect our citizens in this building or other buildings on a regular basis. We don't do what TSA does. We don't do what the Bucks do or the Miller Park. You get your bag searched, go through a metal detector. You're not allowed to carry a gun in there. They have armed security throughout those areas, and you feel safe. When I get through the airport, I go through TSA, I feel safe because everyone's been checked. I would encourage, I know the library board has its own decision-making power over its building pursuant to its charter, but I would encourage the library to also consider removing their sign, because all we end up doing is creating a soft target. The mass shooters and the people that want to do evil pick the soft targets. You don't hear of a lot of shootings at gun shows, at NRA events, at a shooting range, and there's a reason for that. They don't usually shoot up a police station because they're gonna get shot back at. And I would assume. We gave you new rifles too, right? You better shoot back. So look, the concealed carry people, like Lou said, get fingerprinted, license, background check, 4 hours of training. We're the people, we're the good guys with the guns right now. In an ideal world, I would love to have a world without guns. I'd love to have a world without violence, rape, murder. mayhem, violence, but that's just not reality, right? We live in the real world and bad things do happen. And I, for one, would like my kids, if they're in the library or they're here paying a tax bill, to have someone else there to protect them too.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Well, I really appreciate all of the residents that sent us emails and sent us information. The one thing in some of the articles that I was really disheartened by is the lack of data. I like data, I like numbers. While kind of doing my own research, a couple statistics that I found that really jumped out to me was in the state of Wisconsin, from 2011 to 2017, there was 1,284 homicides. 6 of them were committed by somebody that had their concealed carry. Now, unfortunately, the article didn't dig in deeper, telling me were those 6 self-defense, because we know that our self-defense laws are a little loosey-goosey. It'd be nice if they were firmed up a little bit. The best conversation I had, other than Chief Pfister, is a retired chief to a neighboring community to us. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read you his quote. I asked him, does concealed carry create more violence, more crime? And he said, and this is an officer that was, or a chief, retired chief that was an officer for 30+ years. He said, well, the concern was that originally, but it does not appear to be the case. The criminals are going to carry concealed regardless. It does not appear to be that law-abiding citizens are following the law relative to CCW, and that it may actually help reduce crime because now criminals know that the good people are armed. Another concern that he brought up is if he was out running errands and he had to stop at City Hall to pay his tax bill, he now has to take his gun out of the holster, lock it in his trunk, and if someone's watching and realizes what he's doing, now that firearm is accessible. Where it would be better if he, as a good guy, keeps it on him. And I don't want to disrespect the people that took time to send us articles, but when you send an article that says concealed carry laws caused crime to go up like crazy, and I quote from one of the articles, another article was an opinion piece from the LA Times. We need facts based here in Wisconsin. And I got to take the advice of a chief that served in Waukesha County, not an LA Times piece.
Alderman Kavieski.
Right now, I believe I can conceal carry at the park at City Beach. But right now, the way it reads is I can't walk into the community center.
Right.
This allows for me to enter a building that you felt safe with me 10 feet away. And again, you know, to all the points that were made, I'm in support of that, and to the point of addressing those who took the time to send the emails. I get it. And there are some who feel like this is the wrong step. But that same person that you feel isn't or shouldn't have the right to carry the concealed carry in that building at the community center, potentially, you were fine with 10 feet outside the building. It's still public property. Now it's a public building. So appreciate this coming to the agenda. I appreciate this coming as a recommendation from Alderman Rozek. And I look forward to seeing how this goes.
Any further comments before we go to vote? Alderman Mulder.
I'm not concealed carry. I don't have my permit. I don't have a problem with concealed carry. I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of protecting we need to do on a regular basis of ourselves in Oconomowoc and in our city buildings. I will tell you the comment I've heard the most around this issue from constituents as well as staff is, don't we have bigger things to do? Is this really a problem we're fixing? And I guess I would agree with that. This feels, it's been fine for 11 years. I don't know that we have citizens coming up saying, can I please carry a gun when I go pay my tax bill? So all the reasons you give are fine for people that are in favor of concealed carry or have their permit, but I think for the general population, they see this as kind of a waste of council time, is the impression I've taken away, so.
Alderman Cloth.
I'm just going to add to what Mulder said about, one thing Chief Pfister said is that, sometimes people do walk into City Hall not realizing they still have their gun in their holster. So, I mean, it does
Yeah,
happen.
I
more than we
think, sorry, jumping back in, I think that's true. I think that that sticker's probably been ignored most of the time, and anybody with criminal intent could really care less if we have a sticker on the window saying, I'm coming in, oh, now I can't go shoot them all up. I mean, realistically, we're changing nothing by changing this. We're just making it align with what reality probably is, so.
Alderman Kavieski.
I don't think I just wanted to make a comment in regards to Alderman Mulder's feedback from constituents, and is this really an important thing? Yeah, I think it really is. We restricted rights that shouldn't be restricted. And when we get a chance to provide clarification based on change, we should. That is definitely worth our time, always. So that would be my answer to any of the residents or constituents that would have that concern, and why I'm in support of this.
Alderman Shellpepper.
So just trying to narrow down on making sure we have the right language in the ordinance. We discussed this in the committee hearing. Attorney Riffle, could you please state your recommendation as to what you believe the language should read in, this section 2, permitted? Any person who may lawfully possess?
I thought that would cover it, but there seems to be confusion with regard to that. So I'd leave it to the two people on the council that work for law firms to talk it through. But that was my recommendation, Alderman.
Any person who may legally possess. I will make that amendment then to the ordinance to state in subsection 2, 9.02 subsection 2, any person who may legally possess, carry on the statement from there.
You want to make that as a motion with that amendment?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion with that amendment.
Okay.
Rozak, second.
Any further discussion, Alderman Spiegelberg?
I thought that Chief had used the word valid also, as far as,
It means the same thing.
okay,
Yeah, legally, yeah.
sounds good. But isn't someone who can legally hold one and?
Like a
But is their
felon
license
cannot legally
valid?
possess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
just wanted to
that's fine.
clarify.
And I think to Chief's point, if I had a concealed carry but it wasn't enforced, it wouldn't be legal.
Right.
So that's
yeah, we were
legal.
talking in the context of having a concealed carry license, and the chief wanted to make sure it's valid. But this says if you can legally possess it, then obviously you have a valid concealed carry permit, right? Okay, good.
I don't
Everybody's
know.
nodding.
I could
Yeah.
legally hold one, but I don't have a valid one. Isn't there
No,
a
it's not.
disconnect there?
It's not a legal permit if it's not valid.
It's not valid.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions,
Cha-
questions?
As a point of order, Chaz, would you like to waive the second reading as part of your motion?
Yes.
I'll second that amendment.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye. On to new business, consider act on resolution 22-R3035, approving the appointment of the official city newspaper 2022 to 2023. Ms. Conan.
Thank you, Mayor. Before, I have placed at your stations an updated memo and resolution for the city's official newspaper recommendation. The city has received one bid as of this morning, okay? So, which is unusual because we have always received 2 bids. So in an effort to be fair, I sent a reminder to email to the Lake Country Now, which was what we called our former Oconomowoc Focus. And, just reminded them that bids were due by noon today. So I did receive an email response back from them which included a copy and attachment of their bid letter. But the email I received was at 12:17 p.m. today. So that was past the deadline. Their email, however, indicated to me that they had mailed me their bid to City Hall. However, the clerk's department never received it, and the address on their bid that was attached to their email was just addressed to the city of Oconomowoc at our address. So if it did come to the city, it never reached my office, and I have not seen it. So, but again, wanting to be fair, I did review the bid, I looked at their numbers and compared, and my recommendation stands with the revised memo that I've put in front of you, that I am recommending the Oconomowoc enterprise. If you have any questions?
Like to entertain a motion.
So moved, Spiegelberg.
Second, Douglas.
Any further discussion? Alderman Kavieski?
We have a representative from the enterprise here today?
Yeah.
We have a representative from the other, we don't always see you here. It's good to see you here, both of you.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye. Next is consider act on developers agreement for the Arrowwood subdivision phase 2. Mr. Gallo? Or is that going to go through you? Okay.
I'll take care of that one, Mayor.
Okay.
The agreement before you tonight is an exact duplication of the one that we were here a few weeks ago for 14 lots within the Arrowwood subdivision being developed by Viridian Homes. The development phase that we're talking about tonight, phase 2, is 28 lots located to the west of where the original 14 lots were. As I mentioned, the agreement is exactly the same. The only changes is the length of streets in order to determine the cost of the trees that they'll be paying the city for.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Fry? Like to entertain a motion?
Rozak, so moved.
Altman-Cloth, second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye. And to consider act on limiting Festival of the Arts outside vendor sales permits. Mr. Duff, or Mr. Gallo?
Good evening. We did not hold a formal public hearing on this matter, but we did allow people to speak earlier this evening during citizen comments and suggestions. 9 people spoke, 6 were for the restriction of the vendors outside of Fowler Park. 3 were actually in favor of allowing them to remain. I do have a presentation if you have, if you would like to see. I have 6 slides that kind of show the geographic area, but if you don't want to see it, that's fine. I'm available to answer any questions.
Alderman Kavieski.
I think it would be in the public's best interest to see the presentation.
As we heard earlier, there's a history of this event in the city for 50 years. It moved to Fowler Park in 1974. An early Kickstarter of it was the Oconomowoc Junior Women's Club. This features 110 artists, 300 volunteers. But however, please understand that more than 110 artists apply. This is a juried event, and you have to be selected to be part of it. We heard a lot of that during the citizen input. They have provided some give back to the city. They've given us sculptures at City Beach, Veterans Park, the Oconomowoc High School, Melody, the violin player, that was donated by Festival of the Arts. It's always held the same weekend of the year. It's always the third weekend in August. It's a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday. I got a lot of this information off the festival's website. They do have a map of the park showing the location of the specific vendors, of the 110 plus vendors, and it's the same map that's been on their thing for many years. So this is kind of, they have a set location diagram. They do discourage people up in the text there that talk about vendors outside the map have not been through the jury selection. About 10 years ago, we defined a selling zone. The city has been issuing permits even before I started, so more than 16 years ago. But 10 years ago, we were approached by the festival board, and they asked if we could, try to get a little bit more regulations for this. We created a zone. Initially, I thought it was 27 properties, but this one up here on the corner has been recently split, so now it's 28 properties are in the zone. They go from Grove Street to Wilson Street all along Oakwood Avenue. We did also allow some standards that set up to 4 vendors per property because some were starting to exceed that. We also restrict the food and beverage sales. Earlier I heard there was some food and beverage being sold out of the park. That's disappointing because that is a condition that we put on the permit. They must get a permit from us, and rummage sales, we heard earlier, are exempt. Rummage sale is a sacred cow in Wisconsin, and we don't mess with those. So how many vendors do we issue? This is a map that I provide to the city police each year. We do a map this one is for 2019 here. It says we had 12 properties. They probably got about 4. One of them is grandfathered in with 8, so that's around 50. And it just happened that in 2021, even though there's some different properties, it was 12 again. So we're talking around between 45 and 50 vendors are permitted. Now, these vendors they could actually sell art, or they might sell something else. Scarves, for example, might not be art, but maybe it could be considered. The festival was canceled in 2020, so consistently we're around 45 to 50 vendors out of the park. They did meet with, the city met with the arts president, Philip, and he asked for this potential solution, a gradual decrease, I'll call it. He said, there's contracts out, they book these a year in advance, so for this year, this summer coming up in August, issue the same number as 2021, but then a step-down process. 2023, go down to 3 maximum. 2024, maximum of 2 vendors per property. 25 would be 1, and then by the year 2026, no permits are issued. Now this is just his potential solution. This doesn't mean you have to go with this. You could be more restrictive and say, you know what, after 2022, let's just cut it off, or you could keep it as is. So this was Philip's, the festival's request tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments for Mr. Gallo? Alderman Rozak.
What is this? You said solution. Solution to what? Just the festival's complaints about the outside vendors? I mean, that's the solution, right? We're looking at is they've complained to us and they want us to restrict what we've been doing for 15, 20 years, right?
A solution they express concerns with safety, traffic, congestion.
I understand that. That to me struck me as just nonsense. I mean, the traffic is there because of the Festival of the Arts, not necessarily because of those outside vendors. Certainly, there's maybe a little bit more foot traffic on that side of Oakwood than there would be if they weren't there. But everyone that's going to those vendors, in my experience, going there for probably 12, 13 years myself, is really going to the Festival of the Arts, and they maybe hit those spots up. So whenever people start talking about safety, when they're already putting on a very large shuttle event and boats and everything else going on, I cringe because It's not about safety, it's about purifying the event, in my opinion. What are we charging right now for the permit cost for these folks that are on Oakwood?
Renewal with the same number as the previous year, it's at no cost. There's
Oh,
no
it's no
charge.
cost.
If it's an initial cost, it's $75. So, you know, sometimes new people buy this lot. Like this one was just split, so we're gonna have new owners. If they wanna do it, it'd be $75 initial fee, and then it's, renewals are at no cost.
The only thing that kind of struck me as interesting is that the folks obviously are setting up there because of the Festival of the Arts. So they're getting the benefit of that spillover traffic, the people walking by, obviously to go and then stopping at their places. If we were, I think there should be other solutions here. I don't think we should just issue this right now. I think they need to reach out to the folks across the street, and I'll have more comments on that later. But what about us increasing the permit costs for the folks, and then taking, I don't know if we can do this, taking some of that permit cost and assisting with security or traffic control or some of those things as part of, look, if you're gonna get a permit during this time, we've been issuing it for years, we need to take some additional permit fees and transfer that to the Festival of the Arts to assist with shuttle bus or whatever, you know, of some of those additional costs, cleanup, garbage, whatever. Something I've just thought about as I was looking through these materials.
Well, I believe all fees are established by like resolution, so we don't have that in front of us. It's not on the agenda tonight, so I don't think we can just do that, but I'm not the city attorney. I don't know.
You're right.
Yeah.
Alderman Ellis.
What I found interesting is Chris had stated that there's been no charge to the artists. Now you just stated that there's no charge to them after their first initial $75. So it kind of becomes a moot point in a sense. Is that true for all the other residents too, that they're not charging the artists?
No, I'm aware that some of the property owners do charge for their residents. I have a contract in my office for what they charge.
And what seems to be the going rate at this point?
The one that I have is $150 per vendor for the festival. So if you're up to 4, that's $600 for the art fair.
Alderman Mulder.
Thank you to the Donalds and to Mr. Audley for bringing up that we did this to expose people to other artists rather than as a way to make $600. That was something I hadn't considered. I always like when these issues, I always like to see who turns out, you know, because if one side doesn't care to show up, then it's hard to kind of vote for them. I think it's interesting that none of the families that do charge and use this as a money-making, you know, bothered to email or to show up here. It felt more like the people that are more in tune with the art side of things are the ones that showed up. And I do understand the kind of the property rights here and the inconvenience, but the kind of the statement of setting up a rock band across from the band shell when the Legion band is playing that's kind of what I've been working over in my mind. We wouldn't allow one of the other, you know, businesses out by the dockhounds to set up a beer garden on a night and steal beer and food sales from the dockhounds or from, you know, or from Harley when one of their festivals. So it does feel like we do create exclusivity in some cases for things like this. And there's no doubt that they are trading on the advertising and inertia that is created by the art festival. So, you know, they wouldn't have those vendors or that opportunity if it were not for the art festival. That's pretty clear. This has been a really, you know, tough one that I've been wrestling with, but I really, you know, I'm in favor of stepping it down. I'd be open to the debate of, do we take it all the way down to none? Does it go down to 2? But then that, Matt, just leads credence to the fact that, well, this is because safety, and so fewer people makes the problem disappear. I don't think that's the issue here. The issue here is it's a juried art fair, and you guys want it to be a juried art fair that isn't interfered with by, you know, more of a craft fair type approach. So I guess in saying all of that, I am going to support the gradual step down. I'd be up to debate if people want to look at that. I actually would propose do it 2 years, for the next 2 years, four vendors this year, 2 vendors for the next 2 years, so in '23 and '24, and then in '25, we would just be done rather than this 3, 2, 1, and let's exit. If we're gonna exit, let's exit. Let's not, take 3 years, 4 years to pull the Band-Aid off.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
This is a tough one. And like Mulder said, I've wrestled, I've gone back and forth on this one. Couple things I was a little shocked by when Philip called over the weekend. The one question I had for him was, have you reached out to any of these residents? And his answer was no. And just kind of quick to judge them for just wanting to make a buck or supplying shoddy art, which from what we kind of heard from you and the gentleman that left, that's not the case. And really encouraged to hear that you guys are not charging. But the traffic thing on Friday with setting up, I mean, to get from my house to my in-laws' house, I drive Oakwood, and there's a lot of times I forget about the art festival, and it's pretty bad. I'm not in favor of taking away from the residents at all. And I think if we do, they're gonna get smart. They're either gonna turn into the residents around State Fair and start charging for parking, or they're gonna set up a rummage sale and they're just gonna happen to purge all their artwork they have in their house. So, and not that I think you guys would, I'm just saying. I think it would be better for the residents and for the art festival to come together and find a way that we can kind of meet in the middle, whether it's going down to 2 vendors, or maybe you guys have to coordinate somehow with the art festival for Friday, for setup. But, at the end of the day, I think my vote has to lie with the residents.
Alderman Douglas.
I guess kind of what Mulder was saying is stepping back. I'm not for really for us to basically say 2 days out of the year, but the other 363, you can come get a temporary permit, fine, and sell art whenever you want. Kind of that in between is, like he said, of maybe stepping it back. I would maybe be interested in stepping it back to 2 vendors per property, and that's it. Not going to 0 because of the property owners, rather than the 4. I mean, that's open to discussion, but I think it'd be an overreach for us to tell the property owner what they can and can't do for 2 of the days of the year.
Alderman Kavieski.
I'm with the property owners on this. This is not something new, and I do appreciate the conversation that I had earlier today in regards to this. There is a long history of positive feedback that was shared with us while this policy's been in place. And I didn't hear any negative statements provided that this was a great event except for what we experienced on the way in. I think that's notable. The traffic is an inconvenience to the homeowners, to those who live outside of that area, going to and that's part of being an event-driven destination, which Oconomowoc is, which the Festival of Arts has played a great part in initiating 50 years ago. And during that period of time, you've given back, again, with this policy in place, in various ways. And that is appreciated by the city and by the residents and by those who visit the city. During that period of time, with the traffic and not just beyond, not just excluding that load-in time, but this is maybe for the chief. Are there CSOs assigned to that area to help with traffic? Not just in load in and load out, but just in general?
There are not. They have the option of getting CSOs, but they have to pay the hourly rate. So they've been kind of doing it themselves. We do have CSOs that are there during the event, though.
So, I'd be more in favor of taking a look at a resolution that would associate a fee on a yearly basis as opposed to a one and done. And with that money going toward a CSO to help ensure safety and traffic and proper flow. It doesn't need to be excessive, and we don't want to penalize the property owner, but you are, and I appreciate the fact that you're taking advantage of traffic that's going to see juried artists and exposing them to people that may not ever get a chance to see that art. So if there is a minimum fee, maybe $50, there's only 12 properties that are generally participating in this on a yearly basis. $600 to CSO, that would be helpful. That would be the start of the communication that maybe should occur between the Festival of Arts and the property owners in collaboration and cooperation. And that's really what the community is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be exclusionary, it's supposed to be inclusionary, and that's really what art is. And getting a chance to take a look at things that you may not otherwise see. Some may disagree with that, and I understand that and I respect that, but that's not for me to decide. Your thoughts are yours.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Go ahead.
And this is a tough one because a lot of that area is in my district, so I'm sensitive to the homeowners, but I'm also sensitive to the Festival of the Arts. I know one of the artists in there very well, and he does think this is an issue. And I think there's no question, and not necessarily the Donalds, but that some people are piggybacking off of this, all of the resources that the festival puts into play. With that said, I agree a lot with what Alderman Mulder said as well. I wonder if we could come to some kind of a compromise where we say 2 vendors per property and we see how that goes. And we revisit this if there are any issues. If there aren't, great. But
One other consideration too, if you want to look towards that type of compromise, is that most of the food vending that happens at Festival of the Arts are all for the nonprofit groups. Would you want to limit so you cannot have food vending outside in those areas?
Already limited.
there.
already is.
There, it's
Oh,
already,
okay, I
Oh,
missed
it
that.
is, yeah,
Oh,
it's
one
already in
other
there.
comment.
What we should.
There was someone that was there last time.
Yeah, they
Weren't
didn't.
supposed to be.
You weren't supposed to
Just
be
have to
this
enforce
Oh,
it.
okay, okay, I didn't know
We
that.
should empower people to.
This needs to
call.
be enforced.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Alderman Spiegelberg?
The other thing that spoke to me was when Lori said she's been to a gazillion art festivals all over the United States and never has she seen any that take on this aspect. And I will just tell you, because you guys know I live right there, when I drive down Oakwood during festival weekend, it looks like a circus with all of these vendors on the other side of the road. I'm not saying completely eliminate them, but I'm saying, can we come to a compromise and maybe do 2 per property?
Alderman Rozak?
Well, what I think we should do is I think we should leave it alone this year. We should table this or postpone it and really encourage, number one, to enforce the no food or beverage thing. And the Festival of the Arts folks should be calling Jason or the police or someone and saying, hey, they're not supposed to be doing that. That's not issued, so they can avoid losing that. But I really think what we should do is, like what Lou said, is encourage them to reach out to these homeowners. They know who they are. They're right across the street. We sent them all letters. We can give them the addresses and try to come up with some solutions amongst themselves before we just take the heavy hand of government and say, no, you're down to 2, you're down to 0, forget it. Because there's also obviously been a tradition for decades of these folks doing this kind of off-Broadway art stuff, right? So, and I know that's, I'm not a big art guy myself. I enjoy art. I've gone to some of the best art museums in the world. But, there's a tradition of these people doing that too. So I don't think we should just take it away. And I think they should reach across the aisle and say, what can we do? You're obviously also bringing people in. You're helping new artists and up-and-coming artists. What can we do to create a compromise here? We would like you to go to 2. We'll help you do this. You help us do X. Or we're going to go approach the city for a higher permit fee to help us with some more CO, safety officers. I think they should work that out and see what they can come to before we just jump in and say, no more.
Alderman Ellis?
I concur. I think that they need to go ahead and figure it out, both the residents and also the Festival of the Arts. I think I've never been an advocate for government stepping in and saying, this is the way it's going to be. I think that we as a people can come together and come to some sort of conclusion that'll be best for both the festival and also for the residents associated. If that doesn't happen within the next year or two, then at that point in time, I think we need to go ahead and do something. But at this point, I think we should kind of table this and let them try and figure it out. That's my own opinion.
Alderman Kowalski?
Just one final comment to you, Alderman Mulder, to the point of it being equated to music. Music competes with sound, and that's not necessarily the case with this. You do have a situation that, you know, I would contend it's almost complementary in exposing others to art that may not otherwise get to see those burgeoning artists. That's a great opportunity. Maybe one day those artists will be judged by the Festival of Arts worthy of being part of that. You just never know the dedication that some of those have. But I wouldn't equate that again to music because of the nature of the event.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I don't necessarily disagree with some of the things that Alderman Rozek said, but one thing he did say when he said, but this has been a tradition for these residents. Just because something has been a tradition, in my mind, doesn't make it necessarily a good thing.
Alderman Mulder?
I think, I like your idea, Matt, and I can see from the couple of residents that spoke here that having a, you know, kind of a up-and-coming artists section of the, you know, fair could be something they'd be interested in. You know, from my experience, the majority of them are more of a craft fair kind of, not that that's not art, but it's more retail-based. It's really meant to be retail-based, higher volume sales of dog collars or whatever. You know, I don't know where that conversation goes, right? The homeowner wants to make $600. Festival of the Arts doesn't want them to make that money because they don't want them there. So I'd be interested to see if they can find common ground, and I think probably with the Donalds they can. With probably 10 of the other property owners that weren't here tonight, I'm guessing it may not be that easy. Doesn't mean they shouldn't try. I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
Alderman Rozek?
Yeah, so right now, at least the Phil's proposal is to do nothing for this year anyway. So even if we vote to do whatever we want to do, we're not changing anything according to them for this year anyway. So let them make that effort and come back and say, hey, we weren't able to reach a solution. We still think this is a good idea. And if maybe they do, maybe, you know, 75% of these folks, you know, say, hey, we want to be Second Street, whatever, and we're going to help support this, and we're going to donate some of our fee money to, you know, whatever. Why don't we let them try? Because right now they're asking us not to change anything for this year anyway. So it makes no difference if we vote on this right now as it's been presented.
Alderman Ellis?
I'd like to make a motion.
I just have one question, if that's okay. Alderman Mulder?
Just asking you, Philip, is that something that you'd be willing to do, is to do that outreach and try to find some common ground?
You can come up to the podium.
Thank you all for your discussion on this, and I appreciate the chance to speak again. Just a couple things, Mr. Ellis, when you mentioned we should try to work it out because let the people work it out. Well, right now, the city has said you have a permit. So we're going in and we're kind of fighting City Hall in a way. I'm willing to try it, to talk with the neighbors, and I've never talked with them because I've never really had that opportunity. I mean, we work so hard on the festival all year. I'd be willing to do it, and obviously the people that spoke tonight, I think they have some great things going on. I liked what they had to say. So maybe some of the others will have positive things to say as well. So I'm willing to try it. Mr. Rozek, my only concern about waiting a year, I wouldn't want to then surprise them next year and say, by the way, if you got 4 people lined up, you only get 3. So that's my only concern about waiting, that then it might be awkward again. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, what about the idea of having you come back in September?
I'd be willing to come back.
Go back and we debrief as to how it went?
Sure. If
'Cause
we,
one aspect I don't think that we've really addressed are the Friday evenings. and the potential safety issues with Friday evenings. And so that's something that I think needs to be solved rather than discussed at some point. So if there's a point where you'd like to meet with the city staff and the other folks, that might be the bridge that you might look for as well with the people across the street. So what I'd recommend to council is if you don't want to act on this, because we still have a potential motion, if you don't want to act on this, I would suggest that we have the group come back in September, which is fresh in everybody's mind. It also gives you as alderman the opportunity to really go and maybe engage a little bit more in the festival and see what's actually happening. Alderman Ellis, you were going to make a motion, and I moved that direction. Do we have any other questions for Phil before we? Alderman Altman-Cloth.
I do have a question. So tabling this until September, when do the residents generally contract with people? Because from my understanding, some of these contracts are for a couple of years.
And that I don't really know, but I would think when the festival ends, they'd say, oh, I want to come back next year.
I mean, is there a way
So
to
that would be my only
notify these
concern.
residents that we're going to look at this again in September and don't enter into agreements?
Well, one thing we could do from a
Things could
city
change for next year.
perspective is we could have Mr. Gallo put a letter together and just summarize what's happened tonight, and that this will be reviewed again at some meeting in September. Maybe that's an approach, Jason. Do you have another recommendation?
Couple things. All the residents were noticed for this meeting tonight. Okay, I did send out a letter explaining that this was going to be on the agenda for discussion. It's my understanding that what I think the council wants is for the festival committee to reach out to these people. Well, the festival's not until August. They could reach out now and talk about this upcoming festival, about what the concerns the festival has, and that might put them on notice that, you know, something might be different in 2023. So
They're already on notice. We already sent them the letter. And it's a publicly noted meeting. So they're already on notice.
Right.
So if we decide to
Well,
do something
they don't
different
know
in
if that
September,
any
too bad.
changes happened, so I could let them know that the festival committee will be reaching out.
Yeah.
But I think they do know, I've seen signs in yards saying now renting for next year's festival on Sunday, you know. So they rent, you know, a year out in advance. So it really, something has to be in place, I would think, before the festival in August.
Alderman Kavieski?
Would it be appropriate for your office or for the PD to issue an invite, so to speak, to the residents who have permits in place to help coordinate that Friday activity? So to minimize some of that, those safety issues as part of them maintaining permit? Have that, I don't think we can probably make that a requirement at this point, but it could be a highly recommend.
Chief?
Yeah, we work with the Festival of the Arts for the planning and so forth like that. So I think after this meeting, we'll reach back out to them and maybe see if we can reach out to the citizens in that area, get together, talk about the safety concerns and where we can go from there to move forward.
Alderman Ellis?
I'd like to make a motion.
I heard that before.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this until September, and that no permits be issued until said meeting. For that next year.
For next year.
So in essence, just no action on the current requirement. So if we do nothing,
But-
it's tabled.
But it doesn't require a motion, but I'll second Kevin's motion.
Any further discussion? Good. Call. With what? So basically, a motion was to table this conversation till the fall in September and bring it back in the fall. That motion was made and it was second. Any further discussion?
And to not allow any permits until that time as well. And that won't be an issue, Jason? You don't issue out these permits before that time?
Any new?
Well, you're gonna have to
First I
issue them out for this
permits,
summer,
the
right?
things in August,
Yeah,
so
right.
what are you
that's gonna be
talking
an
about?
issue.
I'll be
Yeah.
issuing permits this year.
So What
You mean-
I was referring,
you
what I
mean-
was
you
referring
mean
to
for
there
next
is for
year.
that.
For
next
2023.
Next year, Jason.
2023, that's what I
2023, not
understood,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, okay.
So in summary, Alderman Shellpepper, I believe you're saying that no permits for the festival vendors will happen until after the meeting in September for the 2023 season.
Right, I'll issue
that correct?
2022 this year, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
On to our next item. We've already done item 9A. We're going to move on to 10, mayoral appointments to Paps Farms Joint Stormwater District with council confirmation. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Rozak.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, mayoral appointments of city attorney, assistant city attorney with council confirmation. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Oh, Stan, you're going to come up and answer questions, right?
Yeah, we got to get you up
Your
here.
resume?
I just want to,
Oh, I'm not
we
answering
have a
a single
resume?
question. I talked enough tonight.
I second that.
Do we have a motion? Motion
Altman.
Kavieski, a second.
Second, Altman-Cloth.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You don't vote. Okay. On to staff reports. We're going to move forward on an update for the Paps Farm and Sanitary Sewer update. Mr. Freeber. Mr. Sugden.
Just use the mouse, it's got a pointer on it.
Thanks. I like this one that I can wave my hand around. Thank you, Mayor. So Kevin and I were asked to come to the meeting tonight and go over a little discussion about the Paps Farms sanitary sewer. I think there's been some discussion that's been generated, and so I thought we would go maybe give a little bit of a history lesson, and then hopefully I can answer any questions that people might have. I've been at this for a long time, so I'm hopeful that I can answer your questions that you might have. So on the screen right now.
Can we have you speak into the microphone, Stan, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
On the screen right now, what you can see is this is a copy of the Paps Farms Master Plan. This version is dated about 2004. Paps Farms, the land from Paps Farms was brought into the city around the year 2000. So this just gives you an overview of what was planned. And so the next drawing that I'm going to put up is going to show you kind of the basins for the sanitary sewer, but this is the basis for where the sewer flows were generated and what the planning was for the Paps Farms area and what was going to be put in place. So this drawing delineates the basins that the sanitary sewer for Paps Farms is operating under. So Basin 1 is up here, and that is this purple area, and it also includes the area along Oconomowoc Parkway and Unity Drive. Basin 2, and I'll just outline it for you so you can see that whole basin. Basin 2 is the main part of Paps Farms, and it's all of this area right here, and it includes the YMCA and the school, the Summit School District. The third basin is down here and shown in red, and it incorporates the Aurora Hospital, the Roundy's Distribution Center, and then the business park that's here. So those are the three main basins where things are divided up into. Now maybe a bit of history.
the sewers that served the Pabst Farms area started in 1989, 1990. And so that sewer is we call it the South Interceptor, and it's right here shown in blue. That sewer came all the way to here, and what that did is it opened up sewer service for the Target Distribution Center, which was 1989, and then the corporate park, which was built in 90, 91 timeframe. In 1994, the sewer right here was built, and that's Oconomowoc Parkway. And when we get a little further, that is the sewer that we're going to talk about that is the one that has a capacity issue based on some of the changes to the land use. So showing that one right here. The other trunk sewers that serve the Pabst Farms area, I said, are this blue line, which is the South Interceptor, and then this black line right here is a forced main that comes back and some gravity sewer, but it serves this entire basin right here. So in big picture, Basin 3 is served by this black sewer, Basin 2 is served by the blue sewer, and Basin 1 is served by this sewer right here in Oconomowoc Parkway. So as I mentioned, Pabst Farms was annexed into the city in 2000, and from 2001 to 2004, streets and infrastructure, and also the YMCA and the school was built. And so the first concentration of work was in this yellow area, and the school and the YMCA were the first things that were built. So some of the first sewers that were built in Pabst Farms were right here to serve this area. The planning for where the flows were going to go was based on that 2004 and prior land use plan and master plan that Pabst provided, and so I showed you that earlier. And so what we did is we divided up the flows to pick the best place to go with them, and so we put the flows from here into this 12-inch, flows from all this into this 21-inch, and then this is a pump station that flows back to I want to say it's a 18-inch sewer along that area. So that's where things were divided up. So 2000, as I said, 2000 to 2004, a lot of infrastructure went in. Then we went to 2008, 2011 timeframe, and there was a recession going on, and so pretty much everything stopped. There really wasn't any development that was going on at all. The first things that came back during the recession were was the Summit School right here. The old Summit School site was developed. And if you go back to the land use plans, that was planned to be suburban office. So this area was all going to be office, and this area was going to be single-family residential right here in this area. This was going to be estate residential, 1 unit per acre lots. This was going to be office, and this was going to be commercial. So all of those the planning for those land uses were to go to this 12-inch sewer. Subsequent to that, 2013 was the first development that happened within Basin 1 for Pabst Farms, and that was the Quick Trip. We knew right out of the gate that the land use that was planned for Pabst Farms, the Quick Trip was not something that was planned for that. It was supposed to be suburban office. And so from the very beginning, before any of that development went on, we've let Pabst Farms know that the uses that they were bringing into us did not meet the master plan, and so that at some point there would be the sewer capacity would be exceeded for this line right here. It was a matter of what do you put in there, and at some point that capacity is going to be used up, and then there's going to need to be an upgrade of that particular sewer line. Since the 2013 Quick Trip has been approved, there's been Summit Credit Union, Hackney Apartments, Bubbles Car Wash, Jiffy Lube, Journey 21. They've all been approved, and they all are higher uses than what was proposed in the master plan from 2004. So we've known all along. The letters that have come from staff, from planning, have identified it. It's been known all along that was going to at some point be a problem. And it's a problem that can be fixed, but there's a cost that goes with it. So to address this issue and also maybe citywide issues. In 2018 and 19, the city conducted a sanitary sewer study and modeling project for the entire city, not just this area. That was done in 2018, 2019 by Strand Associates, and it was no surprise to me that this line right here was identified in the study that Strand completed, that it will be a potential bottleneck in your system, depending on what else is built here. So I named off all the things that have been approved. We are at that point where we're at capacity for that line, and at this point, we've been telling PAPS when they brought applicants in that, hey, we don't have the room to add any more until that sewer is upgraded. So that's where that's gone.
Dan, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Is there 0 rec capacity in Basin 1?
Yeah, if you go to the letters that we've written to PAPS, let's see, I'm trying to think of Journey 21. When I wrote the Journey 21 letter, it said that we had room for the Jiffy Lube, which has already been approved, and we had room for one more small retail user. And
After
that's
Journey 21?
after Journey 21. Okay? So that's what we've told them. And, we have flow data from the car washes. The car washes are, apparently they're very successful businesses, but their flow is more than what they had came in and said that they were going to be using. So right now, we're at the point where we're saying we don't want anything else approved until that sewer is upgraded. And I'm sure the next question everybody's going to ask me is how much. And so as part of the study that was done, Strand had estimated it to be about $2.5 million, and that was 3 years ago. So I think, in safe numbers, you can say it's probably going to be a $3 million project. The most difficult part of it is going to be the crossing of 67.
We got a tunnel going in over there. I couldn't resist.
The tunnel's a little bigger than we need.
Okay, bigger than what you need? Okay. Can we just run it over the top of it or something?
We're hoping to save money by having.
The other thing I will outline, or I'll let you know, is the increase, the new sewer that will need to be installed will be a relay of the 12-inch sewer, and it's proposed to be an 18-inch sewer. It will basically triple the capacity of that sewer line when it goes in. And the other thing I do want to address is, as part of this, when this Oconomowoc Parkway sewer went in, it was planned that it was going to serve this area along Oconomowoc Parkway and right here and along Unity Drive. But we are adding a couple of small commercial properties here as a result of the Olympia project. So when the costs are allocated to do this project, the city will have some costs because of those added areas along. Basically, we've extended Unity Drive, and so we will have some costs for these additional properties that were not in the original planning.
Real quick in regards to that, if I could, is that infrastructure upgrade cost associated with what was approved in the TIF since it's associated with Olympia? Number one question. Number two question, you mentioned Bubbles and the other car wash exceeding the number of wrecks that you anticipated based on their original submittal. I think that is with Journey 21 as well. So you know how many initial wrecks were anticipated for those uses and how many wrecks exceeded afterwards?
Well, when we're doing sewer planning, we don't necessarily work off of recs for sewer capacity, for ultimate capacity. What we do is we assign a cubic foot per second flow to an area or a user, and then that user, and then we put it into the model and we add to it. So we don't necessarily do it by rec. So what we're doing is we get flow data from the car washes, from their meters, so we know what much water they're using, and then we can look at those peaks. And so the wastewater utility is able to predict very clearly what those peak days are. So when I look at the usage, we're looking at the peak days for those car washes, which is March and April. And it's like, oh, wow, look at those flows are real high. Now, obviously, that's not every day of the year that they're doing that all the time, But those peaks are what we're looking at, is to model those peaks and make sure that we have enough capacity so we don't have any problems in the system. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
How much flow was anticipated based on the original approvals of those projects going in to what the actual flow was, taking up that additional capacity,
All
which
right.
is now eliminating, or?
So we'd have to sit down and have a look at the spreadsheet, basically, of where the flows are allocated. But this 12-inch sewer right here has a capacity of 1.58 CFS, 1.58 cubic feet per second. The new 18-inch sewer will have a 4.57 cubic foot per second capacity. The Hackney apartments, just for reference, are 0.88 CFS in our modeling. So much more than what was in the original plan. The car washes, the peak day from the 2 car washes was, so about, like 0.1 CFS, which is quite a bit for 2 little lots, if you think about it. And so, but all along, you know, the city's getting higher uses, but there's definitely going to be a problem here. And so we've been talking about it since 2010, 2011, 2013, when things came in. This is not a secret. Everybody knows about it. It's in all the letters from staff. It's in all the minutes from the Plan Commission meetings. I was on the Plan Commission, and it was all the meetings. And so it's not a surprise. It's just that we are now at the point where something has to be done to improve the situation so the rest of this land in Basin 1 can be developed at its highest value.
Alderman Rozak?
So it begs the question, and this was the argument I made when I voted against Journey 21 and Hackney, if we have a land use plan and we have zoning, and then but we know that the proposed changes are going to significantly exceed what our original planned sewer capacity was in that area, why the heck are projects coming to us with submittals from staff saying this is recommended? Why is it not, this could be good, here are our significant concerns with this project?
Well, so here's the situation. As the developer or the owner of the land brings things forward, they can bring forward users that use up a lot of land and don't use up a lot of flow.
Sure.
You could have put a large retail user.
Big box store or something.
You could have put something there
right.
that would have used up a lot of the land and added very little flow to the area. But as we were watching it, it was like, okay, we know that we're going to end up with a problem. And so you can't predict the end result at the beginning, but I mean, we could spot.
But right, when Hackney went in though, in Basin 1, right by the the middle school, we knew that was supposed to be single-family residential there, which had a way less flow than high concentration, high density, 308 apartment units, right, with a pool and workout center and all that stuff.
Yes, but if you, at some point, from the very beginning, this was changed from suburban office to commercial. And so you go back to the recession. I mean, you go back and say there was nothing going on. And so the city at that time just said, hey, we want something to get going here. So, all right, well, we'll change this to commercial, and maybe there's a better chance that we'll get some commercial going. There's decisions are made, and I don't necessarily think that those land uses that are happening now are wrong. It's just that we have a sewer capacity issue that we need to address.
Yeah, it just seems to me in my head that we're putting the cart before the horse. We're building, and we're changing land use plans and zoning because it's the new shiny thing, instead of considering the ultimate problems and issues that we're going to confront. That's why I voted against those projects. I continue to think they're the wrong spot for them. And now we got a $3 million albatross right around our neck, not through any fault of our own, but the developer sure made a lot of money selling the land, and now we're stuck with a $3 million tab.
Well, so then you need to start talking about what the solution would be for doing the work. And so you have vacant land that's still here in this whole region that needs to be serviced. And so there's numerous approaches to what you can do with it. one of the standard approaches would be that the city needs to upgrade the sewer and assess the cost to the benefiting properties that remain out there, and that will solve the problem. We think we've, I don't want to, I'm not here to offer all the solutions tonight at the meeting, but ultimately, it's not like all the land's developed, all the land has developed so far at a higher use than what it was originally planned for in 2004. But now we're at, 2022, and things have changed, so we'll need to address it. And that's why when staff is saying, no more development right now until we get this resolved. That's what staff is saying.
Yeah, and there have been several discussions with Mark and with Stan over the last several months trying to address this and try to come up with solutions. So if we have some potential options, then we'll bring them back to you guys for review. That's where we are, but we thought it'd be good for you guys to understand where this is right now in both the history and our current status. Alderman Kowalski.
Because, being on council for a while and being involved in approving the rezoning for some of these projects, as information has come to us, it wasn't, this is the last one, or this is really close to the last one for the reason of capacity. We brought up concern associated with master planning and the evolution of master planning and wanting to see a revised master plan that reflects the market as it is today. So we don't have to continue to rezone every time something comes before us. It would have been, and maybe I missed it, in a staff recommendation or report that no additional development was going to occur because of capacity issues after this particular project. And
Well, yeah, so I'm not here to debate whether, what got approved was right or wrong.
I'm not saying it was right or wrong either. I'm just saying information that comes to the body that then
I
provides.
can share with you the letters that were written and what was in the packets. Jason talks about it at every staff meeting when the users and Paps Farms come in. We have that discussion. There's correspondence on Quick Trip. There's correspondence on Jiffy Lube. There's correspondence on Bubbles. There's correspondence on Hackney and Journey 21 that all say, here's what the capacity is. I can share that letter with you if you want to see it.
Capacity and what remaining capacity is left and how that impacts future opportunities and who's responsible for that. All that is just kind of a bigger conversation. I'm really glad that this conversation is happening right now. I'm glad that it's happening in an open format. I'm glad that the market knows right now that any projects that come into Basin 1 right now are not going to be allowed.
Well,
that wasn't the case before.
we got a lot of land over here in Basin 2 that there is no issue with, and so there's plenty of things that can go
Be directed that way, right?
can go that way.
Yeah, you bet.
And so it's not like there's no land to develop. It's just a matter of we don't want to build anything else and approve anything else until we take care of this sewer right here. And it can be corrected. It just has to be moved forward.
Done by the property owners who are left to develop.
Yeah, and here's the good news. The landowner got a higher use development for all of that land, and the city's getting, some great users in there and some great projects. So it's a solvable problem. But I thought it was best that maybe I just come here and give you a little history of where it came from and where it is. I will tell you, it's like, even if, in 1994, even if this had been made a 15-inch, we probably would be looking at a problem because of the amount or the magnitude of the change within that basin.
We would have probably had this meeting a month from now after the last.
It would be 2 years from now because then we would have used up the capacity. So.
Alderman Mulder.
Yeah, I appreciate having this information as well. I think this reminds me of the discussion we had around when we moved the hydrant fee onto the utility bill, and a surprise, debt was accruing that kind of none of us on council were qualified to understand by reading it in in Lori's memo or when she would present it. And I feel the same thing here. We talk about how many recs are available, and that's not even something you think about. I mean, the language here, you were on Plan Commission for 2 years. I was last on Plan Commission, no idea, you know, and so I appreciate this. We need to find a way to elevate these issues and put them into common council language that we can understand and really be able to talk about. I knew this was an issue because when we approved Journey 21, but I didn't know that that was the end of it. It was more like, well, we're going to have constraints here, but I didn't know that meant, you know, you could put one tiny retail in there and that was it. So somehow we just, you know, so I don't, you guys are going about your daily jobs and we're trying to keep up a lot of times, and then it kind of boils over when we learn something surprising that you thought you'd been telling us, and you had been telling us, we just didn't understand it. So you have to kind of put a filter on for us, I think sometimes that
Good point.
gets missed.
Very good point.
I will share some good news. The study that the wastewater put together in 2018, 2019, the rest of the system's in good shape, and they identified this as our potential, you know, it's worded as a potential bottleneck because it depends on what you do in Basin 1.
bottleneck?
It's
That's right.
I just want to make sure Basin 2 is okay.
well, it depends on what they build around the rest of Basin 2 again.
We can
Want to make
address
sure I'm okay for now.
Same end of the story.
And how many more kids you have.
Same end of the story, but
But I think the other
that's the-
comment too to consider is, I think we heard loud and clear that you want a master plan here, to your point. And so that's what we've been trying to do, is work with the landowner to do that. But unless they're willing to engage and do that, we're at a holding spot. So we do the right thing.
And we were told at Plan Commission that they are not going to do that, so
They
we are
stated
in an
it, correct.
impasse.
That they're not going to do what? I missed that, Matt.
To put together a master plan.
Oh, great.
well, the reality is there's only about half the land left, and we know what some of it's going to be, so they should be able to do it.
Yeah.
I might be able to do it.
Any of that land that's left, farmland?
That was not a question I thought I'd get asked. I'm assuming this is
40
farmland.
acres. Of 40 acres?
Yeah.
Right in there. That's still farmed, yeah.
Any other questions for Stan? I really appreciate the update. And Kevin, I know you've been involved very intimately on this whole thing. He's kind of quiet back there, but he's been working very, very hard with Stan on this. Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much.
I don't know how I became the historian, but I'm kind of the historian.
Yeah.
I think this color here kind of helps.
Longevity.
Thank you very much. On to our next staff report, DPW Valley Road.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor. The Common Council, a little while back, had asked for an update on Valley Road. Recently, I met with some of the staff from the Village of Summit, and they've been working with Waukesha County on looking at taking over the portion of Valley Road that's between Silver Lake Street going east to Dousman Road. So this is the narrower winding part of Valley Road. So Waukesha County has reached out, offered to resurface that area for them if they'd be willing to take that over. We do have one section in the middle at St. Andrews, which is city. And so the Village Summit has reached out to see if we could come up with some type of a maintenance agreement that if they were to take over that whole section, would we agree that, you know, anything that's within ours, that we'd be looking at, you know, paying our appropriate costs if it had to be resurfaced, restriped, crack sealed, you know, and those types of things. So I did want to make the council aware of that is something that's being discussed at this time. It could be coming forward, you know, either in May or in June to potentially talk about a maintenance agreement. One of the things I talked to them about, because I know that there's been concerns raised, is that there's been comments that, you know, they're going to cut off the road and it'll be a dead end, that they look at putting into this agreement for that section, that's not going to be a possibility. So I just want to make everybody aware of it. That's the only section of the road that they're looking to do the transfer on right now. This way, the Village of Summit would have the ability to change the speed limit on it.
Trucks.
Yeah, and the size of trucks that could go down it. So they're looking to address the concerns of the residents. I think they're foolish to do it myself, but it's their village, not ours, so, but I did want to make the council aware that that's a
Any questions
possibility.
for Mr. Fry?
All of
Alderman
that would come to
Kavieski.
council before that could be implemented, that would have to be agreed to by council?
The maintenance agreement, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah. When they start talking about, we just want to make sure you guys are aware, so, okay. Any other staff reports I'm not aware of? Anybody? Okay. On to reports and comments from aldermen. No comments or reports from aldermen. We're going to move on to proclamation for Knights of Columbus Days. Whereas this proclamation, whereas treatment and care of persons with intellectual disabilities has been a special project for assistance by the Wisconsin State Council Knights of Columbus. And whereas in 1974, the state and local councils of the Knights of Columbus have conducted an annual fundraiser in the communities of Wisconsin with proceeds of the endeavor donated for not-for-profit agencies serving persons with intellectual disabilities. And whereas Knights of Columbus Council number 2487 of the City of Oconomowoc will be joining the other Knights of Columbus councils in the state by conducting a local fund drive for this worthwhile cause. Now, therefore, I, Robert P. Magnus, Mayor of the City of Oconomowoc, do hereby proclaim May 6th through May 8th, 2022, to be Knights of Columbus Days to aid persons with intellectual disabilities, and urge all citizens to take cognizance of the special events arranged for this time. This is dated the 3rd of May, 2022. Wonderful direction. Do you have any other comments on that to add, Alderman Kavieski?
No, I'm a Knight, and it's a fantastic organization overall, and they look to serve the community beyond that, and
Good stuff.
that proclamation.
Good. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?